Sister, through international organizations, we have received training about gender equality. Among this training, there are many things that I have picked up as positive and valuable when it comes to women's rights and dignity. Sister, I have noticed that the application of this training has brought difficulties in the marriages of some of my sisters and around them. Sister.
Like, for example, how, sister? What have you been taught?
Sister.
So that they get home to try and implant what they've been taught. Yes, because that's what I'm trying to understand.
Yes, sister.
That in those workshops or courses, they were taught things and they went home to try and practice that. Like what? What's the example?
Sister, like, as I've said, there are many things that I have picked up as positive and valuable when they speak about women's rights. Let's say that there are many tendencies, but an example is to come home and to say, from now on, we are going to have gender equality, equal opportunity, and so I'm going to leave. That is what the wife might say to their husband. My sisters would say this. And this is something constant. Where am I going? I'm going to learn. I am going to share what I have learned. And they tend to abandon their marriage, their husband, and their children. And it has come to an extreme, sister. That is why I would like, with a lot of respect, and that it may come from you, and that it may be you teaching us to reach balance when we receive this training and this information, and that it may actually help us, but to not turn away from what God wants from us as His children.
As daughters of God. Okay, so I'm understanding a bit more. Very well. Sometimes man teaches things, but doesn't teach things fully. I am totally on board with those workshops that women, not in all places, but in big important cities, women have a lot of opportunities to prepare themselves and have careers in very important big cities. But if we're going to talk about small towns that are marginalized and far and distant, and the access to even have communication is difficult, well, then women there, wives, they are simply devoted to raising children and to handle the chores around the house. They don't have the certain opportunities because it's too far. There are no roads. There is no money to capacitate themselves. They don't study. Maybe they finish just elementary school, because we do see that there are only primary schools in those places. And then aside from that, they just focus on the household and maybe even working the land. And the workshops that people have, and people have these workshops to say, no, you have to capacitate yourself. You have to leave your house. You need to be an equal to your husband. You need to be even, the same kind of responsibilities and rights your husband has. And that's all very nice. But you also have to look at the circumstances of the home. You have to look at the children. What can I say? Well, I can't talk to women of the city because they go to school. They have so many opportunities to go to school. I'm probably going to talk to the women that are there in remote places where there are no roads to access. There's no communication. There's nothing there. Maybe at most a radio, or maybe even a TV. This is what I would say to them, just as the Lord does with us, the women in the church. The Lord, do you know what He does with the women in the church? He gives them spiritual gifts. And He tells them that they're going to serve and work for the Lord. But do you know what the Lord also does? He says we have to wait for this woman to raise her children first. When her children have grown up and she now has free time, she will devote herself to my things. Well, I too will say the same thing to the women who are in these small towns. If they have their small children, wait to raise them and for them to grow up. And once those children have left the home because they're adults now you have all the time to prepare yourself, to go to school, to learn an art, to learn something different, to be able to start a business, to do something. You can do that. You can do that. But if you cherish your children, and I mean, what mother doesn't cherish her young children? What mother is going to say, I'm leaving the house, and is leaving their 2-year-old or 3 or 4 or 5-year-old behind and say, well, I'm leaving the house because I was taught equality and I was taught I have rights. So goodbye. I'm going to school. I'm going to the city to learn, and I'm going to abandon my children. I don't think any mother would do that. A mother who loves her children won't do that. And we cannot expect that the father is going to assume the responsibility of raising those young children, because God, from the beginning, he allowed man to work so that he could bring all of the produce back to the home. That's what God allowed, and God allowed that from the beginning. So why are people now going to change the system? God said to man, you must work the land. You must go to work. You must earn and sweat and suffer and earn your bread. That is what man must do. To the woman, he says, you need to raise your children, educate them. And when they are now adults, these people can then have a different function. God placed this from the beginning. God does this also in the church. To a woman who has young children is never going to demand that she needs to be at the church every night. You need to go, and you need to leave your children alone and go to church. God is not going to tell this woman that. Now, the father, perhaps he can do that, because the mother is the one raising. The mother is the one who loves their children. The father loves them too. But between the two, the mother loves a little bit more than the father. That's how it is. And that is the natural duties that the Lord imposed on us human beings. And so therefore, those workshops and studies that are given to people who come from many different places to give those courses and workshops, it's good to learn that and to learn those values. It's very beautiful for them to teach values and to teach respect and to teach them to respect and value other people, but that they should also teach not to change what God has set from the very beginning. God established that in a home, there's a chief. And God said that in a home, that chief was the man. Now, today, there are a lot of men that are irresponsible, many irresponsible men in a household who do not work, and it is the woman, the only one who works and raises her children and actually sustains him, because this man has become lazy. That exists. But God will charge this lazy man. Yes. God will be the one in charge of charging this man for being irresponsible. But the households where there is a man who is working and providing, and in the situation that exists today, the earnings of one person is not enough. Both need to work. So today we do see that women work as well. The wife works and the husband works as well. And the two, well, they come to an agreement to distribute the chores of the house. But now, of course, here in our countries, since there has been a lot of male chauvinism, now matriarchy has existed, but matriarchy that I know about, there are very few places that follow that. I'm more aware of male chauvinism than matriarchy. Now, matriarchy exists not because of religious beliefs, but male chauvinism is caused by religious beliefs, because from the beginning, when God gave authority to man and said, you're the chief, so he took those attributions and began to abuse them and take advantage of the title God gave them. This is why we fight in our spiritual life, so that everything is just and upright, and that men are responsible, and that since they are the chief of the household, that they should love their wife and their children and be responsible and work and bring that money to the household. But since the situation is difficult, the money is not enough, so that's why the wife works as well. And they both agree and say, okay, I'll pay the rent and you pay the food. And if they live out in the country, well, then they also agree on the expenses. And with the children, you say, okay, well, you need to take the children to school and I'll take them to school on this day. You need to take care of them on that day. I'll take care of them on this day because we're working. So that would be the equality that should exist in marriages. But you should not abuse that, because the sister, according to what she's saying, that there were some sisters who went home and tried to impose what they've learned. They said, well, I was taught I need to leave my home and I need to go to school. And, well, you will have to figure out what you do with the children. But that's not right. That's not fair before the Lord, and that's not okay. We need to think about those children. We need to educate them and raise them first. And then later, yes, there is time to learn. There's time to work. There's time to learn different crafts and start a business. So everything is done with wisdom. Everything with wisdom. And God will be the one in charge of removing those matriarchies. God will be the one in removing male chauvinism, because God will be teaching every man, every woman what they ought to do. If men and women, they come to church and submit to God and want to learn about God, well, God will teach them. Now, the errors that we have and the mistakes we make, God corrects us and He teaches us. And so then that matriarchy will end in the church. I think that matriarchies or male chauvinism will exist in the church because God will deliver us and change us and will make of us men that are upright, righteous, and responsible, women that are responsible, upright, and righteous. That is what God does in the church with all of us. So all of us, we feel proud. We feel proud of the miracle and the work that God does with us. And when we are in the world with the other people, if someone comes to you to cry and to say, look at my life and my situation at home, it's a matriarchy. My wife hits me. She's aggressive physically. She beats me. And so what do you say to that man? Come to church, seek God, and you will see that your wife will change with you. Or the opposite of that. A woman comes, my husband is a male chauvinist and he beats me, he doesn't feed me. He beats me and he doesn't help me out with food and I have to work. Come to church, seek God, and God will work a miracle in your life and will change that man. That is what the Lord does. That is what God does. But yes, of course, the Lord does teach us that we must raise our children with love and to educate them. We must educate them. The Lord does want that, and He does this with people. So we ought to fulfill those duties and responsibilities God has imposed upon us. And what the world does, let them do and think whatever they want, because it will turn out to be wrong. Everything that man projects or makes up, it goes wrong. And as I say, the good, let us accept that. For example, those values, if they teach you to be well-mannered, good. They teach you to have values and virtues and good qualities. All of that is welcomed. All of that is welcome. But do not come and try and destroy my household and want me to leave my household and to abandon my family just to say that I'm equal, and we need to be equal, and there's freedom for women. No, because freedom for women is not going to give us happiness either. Because there are households and marriages, they love each other. And so you're going to separate them because there's freedom for women and it tells you to leave. And so now I have freedom, but I don't have the affection of my loved one. No, I want that. So I'm going to do what God teaches, because what God teaches is perfect. God's path is perfect. And He teaches us to be perfect. Yes. Pray. Ask God. Pray and ask God in the places where there are matriarchies and in the church, if there were people from those matriarchies, I know God is removing that. If there were people who were male chauvinists, God is removing that too, because God is wise and he changes us and transforms us. And how beautiful it is to follow the Lord's path.